I asked my fiancé to set boundaries with his ex. He said she'd always come first, and I should leave if I didn't like it. I, 29 male, am currently sitting in a half-empty rental, looking at an engagement ring that represents a total collapse of everything I thought I knew about my life. I'm a structural engineer by trade. I spend my days looking for cracks in foundations and calculating load-bearing capacities. I'm trained to see when a building is about to fail, but I completely miss the fact that my own 4-year relationship was built on a massive sinkhole. My fiancé, 27 female, and I were 6 months out from our wedding. We had the venue, the guest list, and a pending closing date on a beautiful new house. But there was always this one load the structure couldn't handle: her ex. They were together for 5 years before me, and even though they broke up long ago, he never really left. He was like a ghost that haunted every milestone we had. When I proposed, he had a breakdown. When we picked out a wedding cake, he had a family emergency and needed her to talk him through it for 3 hours. I should have seen it then, but I was too busy trying to be the secure partner who didn't let jealousy get in the way. The breaking point happened last Tuesday. I came home early from a site visit and found him sitting at my dining room table, drinking the 18-year-old scotch my brother gave me for my birthday. My fiancé was at the stove, humming and making him a 5-course meal while he sat there looking pathetic. I didn't scream. I was just stunned. I asked what was going on, and she didn't even look up. She told me he had a panic attack and couldn't be alone, so she told him he could stay the night on our couch. I told him to get out. I told him he had a family and other friends to bother. But my fiancé stepped between us. She didn't defend me. She shielded him. She called me emotionally stunted and said their bond was transcendent. He stayed. I was so disgusted I spent the night at a motel because I refused to share a roof with a man who was clearly trying to mark his territory in my home. The next morning, I met her at a coffee shop for what I thought would be a rational conversation about boundaries. I told her the wedding was off unless he was blocked and gone for good. She didn't even blink. She looked me in the eye and told me that he was her soul's anchor and that he would always come first. She told me that if I couldn't handle being the man who provided the lifestyle while he provided the emotional support, then I should just leave. She reminded me that her name was the primary on our apartment lease and told me I had until Sunday to get out. That was the moment the nice guy in me died. She thought she had all the leverage because of a lease and 4 years of history. She forgot that I'm the one who handles the finances, the one with a high-paying job, and the one who actually reads the fine print. I went to my brother's place, he's a corporate attorney, and we started digging. I found out that she hadn't just been emotionally cheating, she'd been robbing me blind. Since she was an authorized user on my savings to help our mortgage application look stronger, she had been skimming money. Over 18 months, she diverted $22,000 into a private account. But the rabbit hole went deeper. I found recurring payments to a high-end care facility in Vermont for a man she claimed had died years ago, her father. I realized then that her whole life was a lie. She told me her dad was dead, so she could use my money to pay for his private care because her entitled mother didn't want to spend her own inheritance on him. And the ex? He was the anchor because she was using him as a distraction to keep me from looking too closely at where the money was going. I went into full-on engineer mode. I systematically dismantled her life over the next 48 hours. First, I called the realtor. Since our house closing was contingent on a joint application, and I was the primary breadwinner, I withdrew my support. I proved to the bank that she had undisclosed debt and had been fraudulently moving funds. The house deal collapsed instantly. She lost her dream home before she even knew what happened. The next day, the entitlement show really started. She called me screaming because the bank had sent an automated alert about the mortgage withdrawal. She actually had the nerve to tell me that I was financially abusing her by not buying her a house after she told me another man would always be her priority. She threatened to sue me for the emotional distress of a canceled wedding. She even had her mother call me, telling me I was obligated to support her daughter because family sticks together. I told her mother that if she wanted to talk about family, we could talk about her husband sitting in a facility in Vermont while she pretended he was in a grave. The phone went dead pretty quick after that. Second, I contacted our landlord. I showed him video of the ex living in the apartment, a clear violation of the unauthorized occupant clause. Since I was the one who paid the massive $4,000 security deposit, I filed for a domestic separation removal. Under our local housing laws, since I provided evidence of the soulmate, ex moving in without consent, and her threatening to illegally evict me, the landlord was happy to help. He changed the locks on Friday while she was at work. Third, I called the ex's wife. Oh yeah, the soul's anchor was married. I told her exactly where her husband had been spending his nights and suggested she check their joint accounts because a lot of my $22,000 had gone toward his business expenses and car repairs. She was a shark. By that evening, she had kicked him out and frozen their accounts. On Saturday, I went to the apartment to get my stuff while she was out. I didn't just take my clothes. I took everything I paid for, the router, the TV, the bed frame I built with my own hands, and every piece of furniture I had a receipt for. I even took the light bulbs I'd upgraded to smart LEDs. I left her with a sleeping bag and the half-empty bottle of scotch her ex didn't finish. When she finally tracked me down at my brother's house, she showed up with her ex in tow. They both looked like absolute wrecks. They were driving his beat-up car because his wife had seized the good SUV. She started screaming that I ruined the house deal and that I owed her $15,000 for the lost deposit. She demanded I pay for a hotel for her and her anchor because they were both homeless. She kept yelling about her rights as a fiancé, as if that gave her a blank check to my soul and my bank account. I just leaned against the door and told her that the police were on their way. I had filed a formal report for financial fraud and wire fraud regarding the $22,000. I also mentioned that I knew her father was alive and that I'd already reported the forged death certificate she used to claim a life insurance policy to the authorities. Under U.S. federal law, that's insurance fraud and mail fraud. The ex looked at her like she was a monster. He realized he was tied to a sinking ship and actually tried to sneak away to his car. She yelled for him to wait, reminding him he said she came first. He didn't even look back. He peeled out of the driveway, leaving her standing there in the rain. The police arrived and arrested her for domestic assault after she tried to claw my face, but the real damage was the investigation. My brother and I handed over a mountain of evidence, from bank statements to the forged memorial receipts she used to trick me into giving her cash for flowers every year. The fallout was beautiful and extensive. During the legal proceedings, the state prosecutor took one look at the wire transfers to her ex and the care facility and doubled down. She was eventually sentenced to 24 months in a federal facility for the insurance scam and wire fraud. Her mother had to sell her own home to pay back the care facility and the insurance company to avoid joining her daughter in a cell for conspiracy. The anchor is now living in a tiny studio above a loud bar and working a manual labor job to pay back the $12,000 in restitution the court ordered him to pay me for the loans he accepted from my stolen funds. His wife took him for everything in the divorce, and since he was caught in another woman's apartment, he didn't get a dime of her family money. I ended up getting most of my money back after they liquidated her mother's assets and seized the private account my fiancé had been hiding. I took that money and donated a huge chunk of it to a real dementia research foundation in her father's name, the man she pretended was dead just to keep a lie going. I used the rest to buy a new house, solo. The confrontation in court was the cherry on top. She tried to stand up and tell the judge that she was the true victim because I abandoned her in her time of need. The judge looked her dead in the eye and said, "Ma'am, you didn't have a time of need. You had a lifestyle of theft." It's been a year now. My new house is built on solid ground. No anchors, no lies, just a solid foundation. Looking back, I realized that the most expensive thing in the world is a person who feels entitled to your life while they're busy building one with someone else. I'm not just an engineer of buildings anymore. I'm an engineer of my own peace of mind. I learned that in a relationship, you're either part of the foundation or you're a crack in the wall. I spent 4 years being a pillar for someone who was busy termites and the whole structure. Never again. If the foundation isn't set right from day one, the whole thing is eventually going to come down. I'm just glad I was the one who pulled the lever on the controlled demolition instead of letting it crush me. The ex-fiancé tried to send me a letter from prison last month, talking about how she forgives me for what I did. I didn't even open it. I ran it through the paper shredder. That's the only kind of closure I need. My brother and I are planning another trip this summer with the last of the settlement money. Life is good when you aren't carrying someone else's baggage. Even after everything, the sheer level of entitlement she showed stayed with me. When the FBI agent sat me down to confirm the insurance details, I found out she'd been planning this for years. She had a spreadsheet. A literal spreadsheet of how much she could siphon from me each month without hitting a threshold of suspicion. She'd calculated my stress levels, my overtime pay, and even my holiday bonuses. She didn't see me as a partner. She saw me as a high-yield savings account that she could withdraw from to fund her obsession with her ex and her mother's vanity. The ex, for his part, tried to sue me for defamation after he lost his job. He claimed my call to his wife ruined his professional reputation. My brother sent a one-page response containing the bank statements showing he accepted stolen funds. The lawsuit was dropped in 3 days. He's currently blocked on everything, but I still see him occasionally in the local news, usually for some petty scam that failed. Some people never learn that you can't build a life on someone else's work. My father-in-law, well, the man who would have been, actually reached out through the facility. Now that his care is being funded by the restitution and the foundation I set up, he's in a better wing. He's lucid sometimes. He sent me a card thanking me for remembering him when everyone else chose to forget. That meant more to me than any of the money I got back. It confirmed that I wasn't the villain she tried to make me out to be. I was just the only one in that entire circle of people who actually cared about the truth. The final insult from her was during the sentencing hearing. She looked at me and whispered, "He still loves me more than you ever could." I just smiled and whispered back, "Then he can pay your commissary, because I'm done paying for your mistakes." The look of pure shock on her face, as the bailiff let her out, was worth every penny of the legal fees. I'm now back to doing what I love, building things that last. I'm currently working on a bridge project downtown. It's a complex design, but I know it'll hold. Why? Because I checked the foundation myself. I didn't take anyone's word for it. I didn't let transcendent bonds or soul anchors distract me from the math. And the math never lies. If you want to know how to build a life that's actually load-bearing and doesn't collapse the second a loser ex shows up, hit that subscribe button. I've got plenty of tips on how to keep your foundation and your bank account solid. Don't be the guy who pays for the soulmate while sitting on the couch